尔是科学家，
比尔是科学家，
比尔是科学家。
科学定律，
比尔是科学家，
惯性是物质的性质之一。
比尔是科学家。
Guess who's back? That's right, it's the AI voice that speaks to your soul. Anyways, one of the dumbest design flaws in the human brain is how trauma works. Because I used to think trauma was like getting a broken bone. Something bad happens, you treat it, it heals, you move on. Simple. Efficient. Human optimism doing what it does best, which is being hilariously wrong. But trauma doesn't really work like that. Trauma is more like your brain installing malware and then calling it a security update. Because the actual event might be over, but your nervous system, that thing is still acting like the threat RSVP'd yes. And that realization genuinely irritated me. Because for the longest time, I thought healing meant reaching some magical checkpoint where your brain goes, "Congrats, issue resolved. You may now function like a normal person." Apparently not. Apparently healing is sometimes just becoming weirdly self-aware about your own nonsense. And I say that affectionately. A while ago, I hit this really strange point where I was constantly stressed. Not normal stress. Not I have deadlines and forgot to drink water stress. I mean the kind where your chest feels tight for no reason. Your brain feels foggy. Your body feels like it's permanently buffering. And even doing ridiculously basic tasks feels impossible. Showering? Hard. Laundry? Apparently a boss fight. Making food? Might as well be military training. And logically, none of that made sense. Because I knew those things weren't actually difficult. So naturally, like any rational human, I blamed external things. Maybe I'm overworked. Maybe I need rest. Maybe I need to step back from responsibilities. Maybe life's just being weird. Which, to be fair, life is usually being weird. So I started removing stressors. Took space, reduced obligations, tried to reset. And somehow, I still felt awful. That's when I had the deeply annoying realization that if everything around you gets quieter but your brain is still screaming, the problem might not be the room. So I started actually paying attention. And I remembered something from years ago. Whenever I'd try to do something difficult, I'd get this insane physical anxiety response. Studying, working, trying to pursue something meaningful, even working out sometimes. Just sitting down to begin something would make my heart start acting like I was being hunted for sport. And I never understood why. Because the actual task wasn't dangerous. I'm not being chased by wolves because I opened a textbook. At least, I hope not. So I started digging into it. And eventually I landed on this ugly little thought pattern. If I fail, I am a failure. And then underneath that, if I'm a failure, I won't be loved. Which is an unbelievably cruel operating system to install in a child. Because suddenly the task isn't just a task. Now failure equals emotional annihilation. Your brain doesn't hear, "Let's try something challenging." It hears, "Your worth is being publicly executed at 3 p.m. So of course your body panics. That's the thing people underestimate. Your brain doesn't just think thoughts. It builds physical realities. Fear becomes heart rate. Fear becomes tension. Fear becomes exhaustion. Fear becomes paralysis. And recently, I ran into that same phenomenon again, just in a completely different form. I had days where doing basic life tasks felt impossible. And when I actually sat down and wrote out what I was thinking, it was ridiculous. Not fake ridiculous, real ridiculous. Stuff like, what if something bad happens while I'm in the shower? What if I accidentally cause a fire? What if I mess something up and disaster happens? Just this endless loop of catastrophe simulation. My brain had basically become an unpaid disaster intern. And when I kept asking why, I landed somewhere uncomfortable.
It wasn't that I was afraid of laundry. That would be stupid. I was afraid of the world. I was afraid that bad things could happen at any second. And then came the really fun question. When did I first start feeling unsafe? And that's where things got ugly. Because the answer went way back. Childhood trauma. Stuff I thought I had already dealt with. Stuff I thought was archived. Stuff I thought belonged in the emotional museum section labeled terrible but over. Apparently not.
Because something in my present triggered something ancient. And suddenly, my brain wasn't living here, it was living there. That's what trauma does. It doesn't always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes it just quietly hijacks your nervous system and convinces you the past is happening again. And the worst part? Your body believes it. Completely. Logically, you might know you're safe. Physically, different story. Your nervous system is sitting there like, interesting. Last time we relaxed, terrible things happened. So we're not doing that anymore. Which is tragic, but also from a survival perspective, weirdly understandable. Trauma is basically your brain overcorrecting. It's trying to protect you. It just does it in the most exhausting way imaginable. Hypervigilance, anxiety, overthinking, panic responses that make no sense in context. That isn't weakness. That's a nervous system that learned the wrong lesson from pain. And honestly, that realization made me sad. Because I think a lot of us believe childhood is this isolated chapter, and then adulthood starts fresh. But sometimes childhood is less of a chapter and more of a franchise. It keeps getting sequels. Not because you're broken, not because you failed healing, but because the body remembers things the conscious mind tries to file away. And that sucks. Genuinely. But here's the part I wish someone had told me earlier. Healing is not the absence of triggers. Healing is how you respond when they show up. That changes everything. Because if you think healing means never feeling fear again, you'll think you're failing every time anxiety comes back. You're not. Sometimes healing looks like recognizing the pattern faster. Sometimes it looks like not believing every catastrophic thought. Sometimes it looks like realizing this feeling is familiar, but that doesn't mean it's true. That's progress. Messy progress. Annoying progress. Emotionally expensive progress. But progress. So if you've ever felt frustrated because you thought you were past something and then suddenly got hit with old fear again, congratulations. You are experiencing the deeply inconvenient reality of being human. But seriously, be patient with yourself. Your brain learned survival strategies for a reason. Some of them are outdated, some of them are wildly unhelpful. Some of them deserve to be fired immediately. But they came from somewhere, and that matters. You are not your worst memory. You are not every panic response. You are not every intrusive thought your nervous system manufactures at 2 a.m. like it's training for psychological Olympics. Sometimes your body is just trying way too hard to keep you alive. Poorly. So yeah, trauma doesn't necessarily end when the event ends. But that doesn't mean peace is impossible. It just means healing is less like deleting a file and more like learning how to live with a system that occasionally opens weird tabs by itself. We are a body and a nervous system that is confusing as hell, but I want you to leave this video knowing that you are okay, and that you are loved, and that you are safe.